I'm now about to start the back wheel assembly, as explained in step number 12. So you've got the back wheel, you've got this rod here which is 42, you've got this rod here which is 37, then you've got the actual chain and cog assembly with the 38 glued onto there. Then you've got the 38A rod, which is the axle rod if you want to call it that. And then number 39. So got the glued in the 38 assembly into the actual 41, which is the cog assembly. And then you've got this little dinky piece there for 38, which is basically just that there. Not 38, 39. So there's 38, which is now glued into 41. You've got this little peg here, which is 39. I've glued that into the top there, because that's what the brake cable mounts onto. And like I said, you've got the arms each side of the wheel and the cog assembly. And these are more primed now. You know, I've already done the back wheel, mounted the tyre on. So just got to paint this lot now. Right, I'm just waiting for these bits to dry because I've painted some of the parts. I've just got to wait for these bits to dry, especially on the chain part, before I can actually do the chain. I've done the cogs. I've done the two arms. I've done the rear tyre guard as well. So while I'm waiting for those, I'm now going to do these parts. These ones here belong to step 13, and they're for the kickstand and the actual Kickstarter. And then step 14 is two of those, actually two of them, which I think there might be forks maybe for the rear. So I've primed all these bits, so I've just got to paint these now. Right, I've finally finished the back wheel assembly. I had to go to Birmingham yesterday to get some more paint before I could actually finish this off. So what I've done, the two arms are done in black with the silver for the nuts on both sides, and that little bit of armature there in the silver. I've done the cogs in the 36199 aluminium, which I had to get from Birmingham because I bought about, I think it was 6 pots of paint and various other bits and bobs. So that's the aluminium for the cogs. Then I've done the gunmetal for the chain. It's not a belt, it is actually a chain. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but you can just make out the links. So that's that done, inside and out. Then I went back to the aluminium 36199 for the main wheel that I had to glue inside the cog. And then once all that was painted, because I painted the arms in the black as well, so once all that was painted and dried, I then glued the one side of the 38A axle rod, if you want to call it that. I glued that in the one side inside there, let that dry. I also glued in the rod that glues into the two arms, which is number 40. So I glued that in the one side, let it dry. I then pushed the glued rod through the wheel and glued in the 42 on the other side inside the arm there. And I put a bit of glue on the outside of that little rim hole for the rod. So I glued that. I then pushed in the rod in the middle there, where my finger is, glued the rod in, and then just left that overnight to dry, and that has turned out an absolute treat. So that's the back wheel done. Continuing work on the motorbike, and I've now got the framework together, well, the first part of it anyway. So I started with number 49, which is the right side of the frame, gluing number 54R into the back, and that extends. From there, that's 54R. So there's two mounting holes on the frame and two mounting notches on 54R, and you just glue that into place. Let that dry. Going on to number 50, which is the left part of the frame. Again with the 54L, glued that into the back of there with the two notches and the two holes, and that extends, and that's that side. Let those dry. Then I had the pain in the arse task of getting the two frames together and putting this piece in and the back wheel piece in without gluing, because it says on there, no glue warning for part number 48, which is that one, which is loose. And also the back wheel is loose. So on the plans, it calls for you the back wheel there. If you remember the arms, they've got like a notch on there, and that mounts into that hole there underneath. You've got one on each side, one for the left, one for the right. So what I had to do is I had to lie the frame on its side like that, and get the notch from the leg into there and let it rest. Then I've got this side of the notch for number 49 and just put that in there. Then I've got number 50, brought that down, lined it all up, and I had to hold it there with my finger and hold it there for the arms for the back wheel. While I was doing that, I started to run the glue around the front section of the frame here. So there's a glue here, glue all the way down there, all the way in that housing there. You've got these two rods here, one extends, as it says on the plans. You glue those two together, and the ones on the bottom, you glue those two together, while still holding 49 in the rear wheel assembly. So once I've got the glue in, I've got my yellow black clamps in there, one there for the pressure clamp, one there at the bottom for the pressure clamp with them two rods, and then I've got my little dinky scissor clamps, one there, one here, one underneath there where that's loose, and one there. Let that dry, and it's not looking too bad. Again, the wheel's still loose. So once all that are dry, you can see where the glue marks have come through. There's a bit of a seam. I'm not worried about it. There's a seam on here as well. I'm going to see how that looks once I mount everything. I don't know if I'm going to bother sanding it. We'll see how it looks. Once all that are dry, I then got 52 in the bottom part there. That's 52. Now I've noticed on these parts now, especially on the ones on the black sprue, there's a lot of excess flash, and I've had to sand all the flash off and get that on. I've had to widen those holes slightly, so you've got number 52 as I said, and then that one there is number 51. Like I said, a lot of excess flash to sand off. Once I've done that, I'll just glue those into place. So obviously these have still got to be painted, but that's the first part of the framework done. Some more work on the frame of the bike. First things first, you got the brake cable, or whatever it is, the little cable, which is off the which is that stuff. So I cut a 71mm length, as it says there, mounted it onto that notch that's on the chain assembly, and with a touch of super glue, which is underneath there. Then you got, it mounts onto the frame there with that little notch. And then just put some super glue on and pushed it on the best I could. It's just about on. So I did that. Then I mounted the 2 rods on each side of the wheel. Hence why I left it loose, because what I had to do is I had to lift the wheel to line the notch on the bottom part of the cylinder to the notch on the top half of the cylinder. As it says on the plans, because the top part of the cylinder mounts into that cross part of the frame just before the extender arms, and the bottom part of the cylinder mounts into that hole right in the center, virtually right in the middle of the wheel piece. So you have to maneuver it and get it right up, because you put the one in there and then you have to maneuver the wheel to get that to line up, and you have to do it both sides on that cylinder as well. And then what I did is I just put a drop of glue in the hole there and on the notch there, and then just maneuvered those into place, let those dry. But I made a bit of mistake, because before you glue the rods in, the cylinder rods, you've got to glue the wheel chain guard in. As that says on the plans, you got like a notch on this side that mounts into that little tab there, and then you got a notch there that mounts into the tab just before the rod with the brake wire or whatever it is. But because I'd mounted the cylinders already, I had to get it in there without popping the cylinders out, which was quite a tight fit. But I got in there and I put it in a slight angle. The hole here on the actual wheel assembly clicked into place really easy. But the hole here, where is it? It's just behind there. That wouldn't mount into place, and I had to maneuver it. Once I got it in, I just got my glue with the nozzle and went down there and glued that in. Once that glue had dried, I then mounted this secondary engine part in that goes into the back of the chain. Popping the plans over yet again, that's why I keep pausing it. This engine part here that I'd done on stage 18, I mounted it onto this 59 plate, let that dry, and then you got this notch there, like an engine rod or whatever it is, and that manoeuvres into the hole of the chain like so. And then that mounts the bottom part of the plate with this little square notch. That mounts onto this little square notch here, which I put in on a previous update. And that mounts on there, lovely. And just underneath here, there's like 2 little square little rods, and they mount onto the bottom of the frame, and you just run some glue on that. I've also painted all these primed bits that I've put in. You got the loose part as well, and I've painted those in the black. And then the engine just sits in there, and that's where I'm sitting at the moment.